Guys?
James,
we've talked about Xavier Gilliam a fair bit to this point, but with Alonzo down now, this weekend may be a good opportunity for him playing, kind of the hometown team too. Where's he progressed so far this year?
Yeah, I would say Blanding and Xavier are kind of the next two that we're letting compete this week to see who's going to be the next guy. But both are going to have to be ready to play. Both have put on significant amount of size since they've been here. I think they both showed up probably in the 265 to 270 range. Xavier's probably 303, 304, somewhere in that range, and Blanding is like 295, so both have put on enough size to be able to get in and play. They're learning every single day. I know the vets have done a really good job with them all year, but even more so this week. But it'll be a really good opportunity for them, and I think they're ready, but it's one thing to do it in practice, it's another thing to do it in games. So, Xavier got a little bit of time. At one game it was a DN, which wasn't, ideal, but both have played a little bit. So this will be an important step for both of them.
Something we heard, I think, from Chuck early on about the strength and what he brought to the weight room. And this week, talking to Kobe King, he brought up, Xavier Gilliam brought up that strength again. Does he have a unique, is he unique in that department as for a freshman defensive lineman?
Yeah, Chuck would have to talk on that better than me, but he is a big, strong, powerful guy. The thing that jumps out to me is I think you guys know when we recruited him, one of the ways we evaluated him early on was as a basketball player. And then this summer, when the freshmen show up, I have them all to my house. And he was by far the most impressive guy out on the basketball court. His movements, his leaping ability, how explosive he was. And again, I'm basing that on a guy who's 275 pounds doing it. But just an impressive, big, powerful athlete. And, the time that he spent on campus, he doesn't look like a true freshman. So we were able to redshirt him, which is nice, but again, we need those guys ready to go.
James talking about the importance of having players on your team who are unselfish. That quality of being unselfish, to what extent does that need to be part of the player's natural personality? And to what extent is that a teachable skill that can be learned?
I'm going to answer it like I do with my wife a lot of times. She asks me questions like that, and I just say yes to both. I honestly believe, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, obviously, if you got a guy and that's not how he's wired, you're not going to be able to instill that at this stage of their life, in my opinion. So it's got to be a part of who they are, and then you build on it, right? You build on it, you talk about the importance of it, and the vets kind of teach it, and you use examples in the program of where you see it. And I do think it is teachable, but it's got to also be a part of your DNA and how you're raised too. So we talk about it a lot. We spend a lot of time on it. This is the ultimate team game. You're talking about 11 guys on the field, and certain positions more than others. Like the O-line is obviously a very, very unselfish position. So we spent a ton of time talking about the importance of sacrificing for the team, being a member of the team, being a teammate, what that means. And I'm a big believer, the more you pour into others and the more you try to help others, it comes back to you tenfold. I think Ty Warren's a great example of that.
James, have you had a chance to follow what Saquon's been doing? And if so, what's it like for a coach to see a guy, a lot of people may have thought that it wasn't going to work out for him, and now here he is, just kind of exploding.
Well, I think it's a couple things, right? It's an example of, he's at a really good place, really well-run organization, arguably the best O-line coach in the NFL, behind arguably one of the best offensive line. And we all knew, right, that given the opportunity and put in a favorable situation, he'd have a chance to maximize it. And I think the other thing with him that the Eagles are learning, and I talked to them about, is, just as good of a player he is, he's just as good, if not a better teammate, and that's unusual. So to have that type of guy in your locker room and that type of leader and that type of presence on your team, you know, it's a force multiplier in a lot of ways. So I'm not surprised. I don't follow it closely. It's not like I've watched an Eagles game, but I've seen highlights. We've texted. I know him and Fumi have texted. So not surprised, proud, happy. And it's also cool that he's doing it here, right? I mean, it'd be cool if he was doing it on the West Coast, but it's even cooler he's doing it right here in his backyard. You know, there's a huge crossover contingent of Penn State fans and Eagles fans, which is cool. So I'm just happy for him and the Eagles organization. It's a win-win for everybody, which is really ultimately what you want.
Hey, James, do you feel that you'll be able to operate your offense the way you want to with Nolan at right tackle? And I guess how did you view his performance being thrust into that situation on the second play of the game with the game plan you had in mind?
Yes, I think he's playing well, and yes, I think the game plan will have to stay the same. I guess I wouldn't describe it the way you have, because I think he's played in every game. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he just got thrusted into this role without playing up to this point. That's the whole reason why sometimes the coaches get upset. Like, I forced that, like, to play guys, even when you maybe don't necessarily need to, and this is the reason why. So that now Rucci is in a starting role, and it's not all new to him. You know, he's got experience, he's got confidence. We have confidence in him as well. So nothing will change in terms of what we're doing, and we have a ton of confidence in him.
James, with Nick Dawkins, a lot of the conversation centers around his intangibles and his personality. But as a player at center this year, what has stood out to you about the job that he's done there on the line?
Yeah, I think one of the things that he did, I think you guys probably noticed, he lost about 15 pounds. He is a powerful dude. So, like, he didn't need to be 320, 315 to create the power. He's in the weight room in his lower half, especially in his legs. He's a powerful guy. So for us, and I think for him, it's, okay, how do you maximize your athleticism? And at the center position, that is critical. Quickness, footwork, being powerful, being explosive. So he's got a lot of the things you want. And I just think going from 320 to 295, I think was important for him. Very similar to how we've talked about, Drew a lot at the quarterback position. And then I think the other thing is he's like a coach on the field. He's just very, very intelligent. He's extremely articulate. He's a leader that's not afraid to speak up. And then not only from a leadership standpoint, but just from a quarterback of the O-line, being able to make all the calls, get everybody on the same page, does a really good job with all of those things. So, I think we had high expectations coming into the year about how he would play, but I would say he's probably exceeded those, and is playing well.
Hey, James, how would you assess the defense's overall tackling ability at this point this season?
Good. I think at the end of the day, it's about points and yards, and our defense is one of the top defenses in the country. Now, are there times that we would like to tackle better? Yes, we're always going to feel that way. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is, are you keeping people from scoring? Are you keeping people from yardage and creating field position for the offense? And I think our defense is doing that. I think, the thing that I would say we're kind of behind on is turnovers, and we talked a lot about that and the importance of that last week, and then we got 2 last week. So we'd like to continue building on that. We'd like to, continue tackling and improve in that area. It's a little challenging this time of year. There's some things that we do earlier in the year that I think really help with tackling. But as the year goes on, that becomes a little bit harder and harder to do. So we still work at it, bags, drills, A lot of bag work, a lot of sled work. So we'd like to tackle better. I'd like to tackle better, but ultimately it's about points and it's about yards, and we're doing a pretty good job of that.
Two more guys.
James, you talked about the competition for the younger defensive tackles. How about the younger running backs right now between Corey and Quentin? How important is this week and the upcoming weeks for them right now and moving forward?
Well, it really depends, right? I think their development, has been really good, and I think each week the staff is getting more and more confident. And I'd say, Quentin was a little bit ahead, and then Corey has caught up. I think mainly just based on opportunities. Quentin was a little banged up there for a little bit, and then we also tried to limit some of his based on redshirting. So that thrust Corey into a role, which I think kind of sped up his maturation process. But on that same note, we don't have enough carries to go around for Nick and Katron as it is, which you guys made very obvious after the first half. So you're probably not going to see a whole lot of those guys unless we need to.
James, from the outside looking, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask about Katron.
No, we're good.
I don't think that ever came up this week. It's probably worth us bringing up. Is that a game flow thing?
Yes.
Is it simple as that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Coach.
I was going to ask you about Dvon, and it seems from the outside looking in like he's a guy who really had to wait his turn, and it doesn't seem like a lot of players are as apt to be willing to do that. What has it meant for him to be one of those guys who has not only emerged as a player but a leader as well?
Yeah, I don't know if I would describe it that way, only because you just play so many guys on defense. So he's been playing for a while, and defensive tackles, you could be a rotational guy and still play a lot. But I get your point. I think the biggest thing with him is he's really developed into a leader. And I think the other thing I would say is, and you guys have been around him, he's very comfortable in his own skin. Very, very charismatic. And I think he's got a chance to play this game further than Penn State. But I also know he's like a textbook clinic example for our younger players about how to maximize the Penn State experience. He's like, and Nick Dawkins is the same way. They're like the mayors of State College. They know everybody, the professors, the owners of the restaurants, the hotels, the bars, the students, with you guys, the donors. Like, those guys are going to be very, very successful. We have a guest coach program with donors and with professors, and by the end of all those weekends, Nick's like best friends, and Dvon's like best friends with them. Like, they've exchanged cell phone numbers. He's smart. And this Penn State thing is so much more than what you just learn in the classroom and what you do on the field. As you guys know, I'm preaching to the choir, but largest living alumni base, and I think those two guys know every one of them, all 750,000. So there's a ton of value, and I mean this. The younger players should be taking notes, because those guys are like teaching a master's doctorate course on how to maximize the Penn State experience.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.